2018, an Englishwoman was drinking out of a glass with a metal straw when she suddenly fell with the drink in her hand. Tragically, she landed directly on the straw, which punctured her eye socket and went through her brain, killing her almost instantly. For many years, Beethoven kept his hearing loss a secret since he was afraid that revealing his deafness would ruin his career. He once wrote a note to his brother that he never sent, confessing that he'd been completely deaf since the age of 40, and explaining that it had an immense impact on his social life. Since many people assumed he was antisocial, Beethoven longed for human contact but became a recluse out of shame. All of this resulted in severe depression and made the composer contemplate taking his own life. Last summer, 36-year-old Italian surfer Giuliana Manfrini died in a total freak accident while surfing off the coast of Indonesia. When she was catching a wave, a swordfish suddenly leaped out of the water and stabbed her directly in the chest with its bill. Despite immediate first aid from her surfing buddies and being rushed to a local hospital, she couldn't be saved. Here's the grave of a woman who chose to leave her name off and instead gave it the inscription, "I was somebody." She apparently told the cemetery sexton that eventually nobody would remember her anyway, so this inscription would at least be more memorable than she was. While on an African safari in 1963, Ernest Hemingway survived 2 plane crashes in a row. The first plane collided with a telephone wire and wound up in the Nile, leaving him with minor injuries. While Hemingway was being rescued from this first crash, the rescue plane also crashed. The plane caught on fire, so Ernest had to smash the door open with his head, causing extensive burns and a fractured skull. The novelist was presumed dead until he walked out of the jungle in high spirits, carrying bananas and a bottle of gin. In September of 2000, Celtics legend Paul Pierce was stabbed 11 times during a bar fight in Boston. He suffered wounds to his face, neck, and back, but despite nearly dying and undergoing surgery to repair serious damage to his lungs, Pierce was the only Celtics player to play in all 82 games the following season. I don't know what's happening, I'm sorry. Years later, Pierce revealed that he was severely depressed after the stabbing, dealing with constant paranoia over crowds and PTSD from the near-death experience. In 1951, Edward Harrison was playing a round of golf in Washington State when his driver snapped and the shaft pierced his gooch. He staggered in excruciating pain for about 100 yards before collapsing and bleeding out. In 2001, a Canadian man was staying over his mother's house so he could attend his father's funeral. While cleaning the kitchen, he apparently tripped over the open dishwasher door and fell onto the rack of knives that were standing upwards. He was impaled by several knives and eventually succumbed to his wounds. In March of 1989, Texas college student Mark Kilroy went missing while vacationing for spring break just across the Mexican border. An extensive search took place that quickly turned dark when investigators discovered that Kilroy had been kidnapped by a drug cult that believed human sacrifices would protect their operations from law enforcement. On the cult's ranch, they found 16 bodies, including Kilroy's, that had been sacrificed in occult ceremonies. The student had been tortured, sodomized, and killed with a machete during a sacrificial ritual, after which his brain and spine were removed from his body. The cult's leader evaded capture by taking his own life, but 14 others were prosecuted for their heinous crimes. After George Harrison of the Beatles died from brain and lung cancer in 2001, his widow sued one of the doctors at the hospital where George received his radiation therapy. The man allegedly forced him to listen to his son play guitar and autograph the guitar while George was barely coherent in his final days. In 2020, Costco stopped selling Chowco coconut milk after its manufacturer was accused of using forced monkey labor. Groups of chained-up macaques were allegedly forced to pick coconuts and had their teeth pulled if they tried to resist. Costco halted purchases and demanded audits from the Thailand-based company to ensure humane practices. In August of 2008, popular DJ deadmau5 and his tour manager missed their connecting flight in Barcelona by just a few minutes. While waiting in the terminal, pissed off that they would miss their next show, they watched as their flight took off and immediately crashed due to mechanical failure, killing 154 of the 172 passengers on board. deadmau5 said after witnessing the tragedy, quote, "There were maybe 800 to 1,000 people in the airport, and nobody made an effing sound. It was the creepiest shit." In Singapore, every person over 21 years old is automatically registered as an organ donor. Those who opt out are placed at the bottom of the priority list if they ever need an organ transplant. In 2010, 72-year-old Linda Chase left her roommate's dead body in the recliner chair that he died in for 18 months. She talked to his decaying corpse and watched NASCAR with him every day. After police performed a welfare check and found the man's body, Linda's only explanation was that she didn't want to be alone and he was the only person who was ever nice to her. She only got in trouble for cashing some of his benefit checks and was sentenced to 3 years probation and mental health treatment. While filming for Gladiator, Oliver Reed died suddenly after challenging a group of sailors to a drinking contest at a bar. The actor consumed 8 pints of beer, 12 shots of rum, several shots of cognac, and an entire bottle of whiskey. He fell ill during the match and collapsed, dying of a heart attack in the ambulance en route to the hospital. It ended up costing the production company $3 million to recreate Reed's face with CGI, so he could appear in all the scenes that still needed to be filmed. Here's a photo taken by Challenger Deep of a beer bottle resting on the ocean floor 35,000 feet down, the deepest known point on the Earth's surface. This is the last known photo taken of Janet Johnson, a famous American mountaineer known for completing many difficult climbs throughout the world. She disappeared along with her friend John Cooper during a climb in 1973, until their bodies were found separately 2 years later, both wearing just one shoe and missing their ice picks. Cooper was found with a bloody wound on his stomach and a look of horror frozen on his face. Accordingly, several people, including examiners of the autopsy, believe that both Cooper and Johnson were murdered. The photo above was only discovered in 2020 when climbers found Janet's backpack and camera within the melting glacier. This was the last photo ever taken of Marco Siffredi, the first man to descend Mount Everest on a snowboard. He was attempting his second descent in 2002 when Sherpas urged him not to go due to bad weather conditions, but Siffredi ignored their warnings and was never seen again. In 1999, Little League baseball player Kevin Stephen was hit in the chest by a baseball bat, causing his heart to suddenly stop. Luckily, off-duty nurse Penny Brown was in attendance and saved the boy's life by giving him CPR. 7 years later, Penny Brown was choking at a restaurant when one of the workers rushed over to give her the Heimlich maneuver, thus saving her life. That worker was Kevin Stephen. Jacques Hebert was a revolutionary French journalist during the Reign of Terror, who was heavily in favor of beheading anyone who disagreed with his radical views. After he accused Marie Antoinette of incest with her son, Hebert was sentenced to death via guillotine. He reportedly fainted several times on the way to his execution and screamed hysterically when placed under the blade. To amuse the crowd and make a statement, the executioners rigged the blade to stop inches from Hebert's neck. They did this 3 times before finally executing him on the 4th attempt. In 1996, a stalker named Robert Dewey Hoskins told Madonna's assistants that he would slash her throat from ear to ear unless she married him. He then jumped the fence at the singer's home before being shot by a bodyguard, but survived and was arrested. Madonna would later testify against Hoskins in court, saying she felt sick to her stomach just being in the same room with him and had recurring nightmares about him chasing her. After being deemed highly psychotic and extremely violent, Hoskins was sent to a mental hospital, which he briefly escaped from in 2012. Just last year, a zookeeper from Uzbekistan was eaten alive while attempting to round up 3 lions that escaped from their enclosure. He apparently recorded the entire ordeal on his phone while attempting to impress his girlfriend, as his deathly screams could clearly be heard in the footage. Rescuers say they had no choice but to tranquilize 2 of the lions, while shooting the 3rd dead before finding the zookeeper's mangled remains. In 2013, a Swedish prisoner escaped from the facility because he had a severe toothache and was denied medical care. He broke out, saw a dentist who pulled out his tooth, and then turned himself back in. A 22-year-old woman from Ireland was recently left with severe internal injuries after her butt plug was pulled through her body during an MRI scan. She apparently believed she was safe to insert it before the procedure, believing the plug was made entirely of silicone. But it actually contained a metal core, causing it to react to the scanner's powerful magnets. She's expected to recover in the hospital, but this is why doctors always say you should never wear a butt plug while getting an MRI. In another ridiculous MRI case in 2023, a Brazilian lawyer tragically died after a scanner caused his gun to fire inside of the machine. After being repeatedly asked by doctors to remove all metal objects, Leandro Novaes decided not to reveal that he had a gun in his waistband, which ended up firing into his stomach. He spent several weeks in the hospital before succumbing to his costly bad decision. This case was a big reason why doctors always remind their patients to remove any firearms before receiving an MRI. During a trip to Paris in 2007, Prince Harry had his driver go through the same tunnel that his mother, Princess Diana, died in, at the same speed her car was going at the time, as he was trying to find closure for her death. He later described the attempt as ill-conceived, saying it only brought him more pain as it was just a regular tunnel that nobody should have ever died in. In 2022, college wrestlers Kendall Cummings and Brad Lowry were hiking in the woods near Yellowstone when Lowry was suddenly attacked by a grizzly bear. Kendall yelled and threw rocks at the bear to no avail, so he decided to jump on its back. This allowed Lowry to escape and get help while Kendall wrestled the bear until it ran off. Despite several deep wounds, both men were rescued. In 1994, 13-year-old Texas boy Nicholas Barkley went missing after playing basketball with some friends. 3 years later, he was found in Spain and reunited with his family, but something was very off. The boy who came back had darker hair, brown eyes instead of blue, and a French accent, while looking much older than Nicholas would have been at the time. But perhaps blinded by grief, the Barkley family accepted this boy without question despite these major differences. To be fair, he claimed his kidnappers had taken him to France, dyed his hair, and changed his eye color to hide his identity. But a private investigator would soon reveal the boy's true identity as Frederick Bourdon, a 23-year-old Frenchman with a history of impersonating missing kids. Bourdon had apparently been searching for love and affection that he never received as a child. Known as the Chameleon, he's assumed over 500 false identities throughout his life, including those of orphans. Meanwhile, the true fate of Nicholas Barkley remains unknown to this day. In 2015, a stray cat named Masha found an abandoned baby inside a box in the freezing cold streets of Russia. She climbed in to keep the baby warm while meowing to get the attention of passers-by, thus saving the baby's life. In 1985, Clive Wearing suffered a severe case of amnesia after a viral infection caused damage to the hippocampus of his brain. Ever since then, his memory only lasts about 20 seconds before completely resetting since his brain is incapable of forming new memories. He spends all day thinking he just woke up from the coma he was in 1985. Clive often gets very frustrated in the middle of conversations and can't even remember what food he's eating by the time it reaches his mouth. When asked what it's like to have this awful condition, Clive replied, "It's exactly the same as being dead. To be dead is easy. You don't do anything at all. I've never been bored or upset. I've never been anything at all. It's exactly the same as death. No dreams even. Day and night, the same." In 1996, Maryland woman Sharon Lopatko was killed in a bizarre case of consensual homicide. She had emailed dozens of men asking them to torture and kill her for mutual sexual gratification before meeting a man named Robert Glass who would follow through with her request. One morning, Sharon left her husband a note saying she would never return and told him not to track down her killer. Glass ended up strangling her to death and was soon arrested after police found the emails and discovered Sharon's body on his property. He admitted to fulfilling her torture fantasy, but also maintained that her death was an accident. Glass pled guilty and was sentenced to 3 to 5 years before dying of a heart attack while investigating the illegal shark fin trade for the BBC special Gordon's Shark Bait in 2011. Gordon Ramsay and his crew were attacked by a group of men linked to drug networks in Costa Rica. They were held at gunpoint, doused with petrol, and told they would be killed if they continued filming. The shark fin trade continues to flourish to this day due to the high demand of shark fin soup, resulting in about 100 million sharks being killed every year. This was the obituary of Kathleen Demlow, who doesn't appear to be missed by her family. Here's a photo of Barbara Graham saying goodbye to her 2-year-old son Tommy before being executed via gas chamber in 1955. She was convicted for her part in the brutal murder of elderly widow Mabel Monahan during a home invasion gone wrong. In 1988, Hawaiian musician Israel Kana'i Kamakavivole called the owner of a recording studio at 3 a.m. when he was so eager to record his new idea. Despite having obviously closed for the night, the studio owner agreed since Israel was such a nice guy. Within 15 minutes, they recorded his ukulele rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow in just one take. Sadly, Israel struggled with morbid obesity throughout his life, at one point weighing over 750 pounds. After enduring several hospitalizations due to respiratory and cardiac issues, the legend would end up dying of respiratory failure at the young age of 38. Russian scientist Anatoly Bogorsky worked as a physicist on the largest particle accelerator in the Soviet Union. In 1978, he was checking a malfunctioning piece of equipment when one of the safety mechanisms failed, causing a high-energy proton beam to pass directly through his head. He reportedly saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, but didn't feel any pain. The beam had burned through parts of his skin, bone, and the brain tissue underneath, causing the left half of his face to swell up beyond recognition. Since it was believed that he received far more than a fatal dose of radiation, Bugorsky was taken to a clinic in Moscow where doctors could document his certain death. But miraculously, Bugorsky survived, completed his PhD, and continued working as a particle physicist. Nearly 50 years later, he's still alive to this day with relatively minor symptoms. As the Nazi regime gained power, actor Lionel Royce lost his job and began receiving death threats for being a Jew. So he took refuge in the Alps, grew a beard, and dyed all of his hair by bathing in diluted hydrogen. He then returned to Germany claiming to be a self-taught peasant actor, and was eventually praised by the Nazis as proof of superiority of Aryan blood. Colombian man Christian Montenegro, who claims to be engaged to a ragdoll, has revealed that his fiancée Natalia is pregnant with their third child. He also shared his plans for a dream wedding with his beloved partner, with whom he already has a son and daughter. When questioned about his bizarre relationship, Montenegro replied, "If it weren't for the dolls, I'd be more alone than anyone. At least I have something." And Christian certainly isn't the first person to fall in love and start a family with a ragdoll. In 2022, Maravone Marias had an actual wedding ceremony with her ragdoll husband Marcelo that was attended by 250 people. But the woman has recently expressed serious doubt in their relationship after she caught her husband cheating on her with another woman at a local motel. In 2004, 40-year-old Marion Carver set out on a week-long Alaskan cruise by herself. Just 2 days into the voyage, her steward noticed that she was missing, but was told by his supervisor to just do your job and forget about it. Therefore, the woman's disappearance went unreported, and at the end of the cruise, most of her belongings were allegedly disposed of. Carver was only reported missing by her father more than a week after she disappeared, when she never returned home from her trip. To this day, no trace of her has ever been found, as her fate remains a total mystery. In 1963, a stray tuxedo cat named Félicette became the first and only cat to go to space. She was launched by French scientists and spent 15 minutes in a rocket before returning to Earth. She was euthanized shortly afterwards so scientists could study her brain. In 1998, Polish college student Katarzyna Zawada went missing when she was supposed to meet up with her mom. A few months later, a tugboat suddenly stopped working because a pile of human skin got stuck in the propeller. When the remains were examined, it was determined that the skin was deliberately removed from the torso while the limbs and head were cut off. DNA testing soon linked it to the missing woman, and researchers eventually concluded that her murderer had been wearing her skin as a bodysuit.